We are getting closer and closer to finding out exactly what happened in Wuhan before 2019 that caused all this mess. There have been so many theories since 2020 when we found out exactly where it came from, China, and what's been going on. Some of the theories are absolutely crazy, ludicrous. Some of them too soft, some of them being covered up by China, and some of them were covered up by WHO at first. Some of the people that were they were conflict of interest, some just complacent, and some we need evidence to accuse them if we want to do it properly and legally. That's been the biggest issue right now, because when you can't really do it legally, then you come up with random theories. But the Science and Technology Select Committee in Parliament, they've had a number of sessions throughout the last couple of years. Some of them just waste of time, waste of taxpayers' money, just randomly ranting among themselves, politicians and the people who bring as guests. But sometimes there are people who come with good evidence, and there are people who are trying their best to find out what's going on. One of them is Dr. Chen, who's been quite robust in terms of her findings and her, generally speaking, her thoughts, because she doesn't really just say things for the sake of it. She wants to make sure that she could back it up with evidence or data. One of the recent things that we've now heard is that the origin of this whole mess, the theories that we had, is becoming more likely now that engineered in the labs, and so they knew what they were at least experimenting with. It wasn't some sort of wet market, it wasn't an accidental oops, what did we do. Dr. Chan says, well, I think the lab theory, the origin, is more likely than not. Right now it's not safe for people who know about the origin to come forward. That's a very fair point. It's been happening since 2020, and some of them disappeared. We know that. But at the same time, she says that we have heard from many of the top virologists that the genetically engineered origin is reasonable, and that also includes virologists who made modifications to the first SARS virus that came out years ago. She does say that obviously this one has a unique feature called the furin cleavage site, and without this feature, it wouldn't have caused this much mess. So that is a modified version, and because of certain things, aspects that this has, hence why the transmission's been high, and hence why in terms of severity it hit certain groups within society that we have and across the world. So Dr. Chan is now trying to find out more about what's been going on. So MPs in Parliament have now been told, what are they going to do with the information? We don't exactly know, because there is a group that's the China research group that's been started by the Tories mainly, that it exists to find out, essentially do some digging. Otherwise, the rest of Parliament, they're not really focused on this. There's been a lot of people who've come out with nonsense, and they've been exposed. One of them, Peter Daszak, who's come out to, at the time, the Lancet, the medical journal, published this letter in 2020 saying that the lab theory, you're all crazy people with your theories. Oh, it's not true. You should all be basically sent to jail. And we've discovered, obviously, that Peter himself, there was a bit of a conflict of interest, because he worked closely with the labs in Wuhan himself. So, yeah, that doesn't really help. You're not a credible source, unfortunately, Peter. So that's been one of the things that had to be exposed by Dr. Chan and many other scientists who have been trying their best to finding out what's going on. She did say that, of course, we now know that experiments were being done at their biosecurity level 2 that resulted in 10,000 times increases, but 10,000 times increases when it came to the effectivity of viruses, and 3 or 4 times in terms of lethality. So there are a number of things that we need to find out more. The issue is we can't really talk about much of it because you need evidence and you don't want to come out like a crazy person. But until now, some of the stuff that some people said, actual scientists, at the time they were called crazy, seems to be that they were at least semi-right. Let's just say semi-right. Let's be objective. But we need the truth. And it's difficult to see if we can ever find out the real truth. We'll see what happens. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try my best to also find out what's been going on my Tousi, and we are the media.